The sun burned gently over the Lagos shoreline that morning. Children ran across the sand, mothers laughed under umbrellas, and the water roared in calmly. Among the people, a woman named Awil sat on a mat with her young son, Somadina, enjoying a rare moment of peace. Then the black van came. It rolled up quietly at first. 4 men with hard faces stepped out. No uniforms. No badges. They walked straight toward her like they already knew her name. Awil saw them coming and froze. One grabbed Somadina by the arm. Another held her down. She screamed, but no one around moved. Some turned their heads. Others acted like they didn't hear. Within seconds, the men forced mother and child into the van. Then it drove away like nothing had happened. Inside a small church on the mainland, Pastor Tunde stood behind the pulpit. His voice was calm. His words were gentle. "We are not perfect," he said. "But if we don't choose to be better, then evil wins." His small congregation nodded. They trusted him. He had been their pastor for nearly 10 years, ever since he came from the north and bought the land. Nobody knew much about his past, but he carried himself like a man who had already fought many battles. Later that evening, at home, Tunde sat at his dining table with his grown son, Ebuka. Ebuka was in his early 30s, strong-willed and passionate. He had inherited none of his father's calm, but all of his courage. "Papa, why don't you ever speak about what you did before the church?" Ebuka asked as they shared a meal of rice and fish. Tunde looked at him. "Because I've already buried that life. Some things are better left there. But sometimes, to fix the present, we must face the past," Ebuka replied. Tunde didn't argue. He simply ate, quietly. Outside, the wind began to rise. The next day, in a swampy area on the outskirts of Port Harcourt, Ebuka crouched with his camera hidden behind bushes. He was an activist now, investigating illegal oil bunkering. That morning, he had followed a tip and found a group of well-dressed men standing by tankers, surrounded by armed guards. The men laughed as dark crude oil spilled into stolen drums. Ebuka recorded everything. One of the guards spotted movement. "Who's there?" Ebuka ran. They chased him, but he knew the terrain. He escaped. Later that evening, he uploaded the video to social media. The clip exploded. People began asking questions. Powerful men started making phone calls. In a private room inside a luxury estate, 3 men gathered to watch the video. Among them were Brigadier Modi, Chief Ajayi, and Colonel Bello, men with suits and titles, but hands stained with oil and blood. "This boy has seen too much," Modi said. "His name is Ebuka Tunde," Bello added. "Son of the pastor. Used to work with NGOs. He's clean. Too clean." Ajayi lit a cigarette. "Then we make him dirty." They nodded in agreement. It was time to clean up the mess, and they all knew what that meant. The next morning, at dawn, police officers stormed Pastor Tunde's compound. They broke down the door and shoved the old man to the ground. Ebuka was dragged from his bed, handcuffed, and beaten. "You're under arrest for terrorism," the officer barked. Tunde shouted, "You have the wrong person." But no one listened. Ebuka was thrown into the back of a police van, his face bleeding. The engine started. Tunde tried to follow, but the officers shoved him back. The van drove away. Ebuka never got a trial. By evening, he was dead. The body was dumped in front of Tunde's home, bullet in the chest. No uniformed officers in sight. Just a van that stopped, pushed the body out, and sped off. Tunde stood in silence. He knelt beside his son's lifeless form and touched his cheek. His hands trembled. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He simply went inside, got a bucket of water and soap, and came back out. Then he began cleaning the blood from the concrete. People watched from a distance. No one spoke. Inside the house later, Tunde opened an old drawer. He pulled out a worn Bible. Beneath it, an envelope with military insignia. Inside the envelope, photographs, coordinates, and a black and white ID card that read, Major Tunde Boko, Operation Silent Dawn. He stared at the card for a long time. That night, he walked to the back of his house and dug up a small wooden box hidden beneath the soil. Inside it, a handgun, an old combat knife, and a map with names and locations scribbled in faded ink. He picked up the gun. His face didn't change. Flashbacks came quickly, like broken glass in his memory. Years ago, he was called Commander Boko, part of a secret Nigerian military squad that carried out state-ordered assassinations. Their targets were enemies of the regime, journalists, rebels, and even fellow soldiers who had asked the wrong questions. He had left that life after one mission left a child in his hands, a girl whose parents had been killed in front of her. That child was a will. And now, she was missing. Armed with only the clothes on his back and a cold sense of purpose, Tunde began visiting old contacts. He first found Captain Goyega, an ex-soldier now running a car parts shop in Ikeja. Goyega refused to talk at first. That life is dead, old man. Tunde placed a bullet on the table. Talk. Or be the next. Goyega gave up the names, Modi, Bello, Ajayi, and something else, the Black Book. The Black Book? Tunde asked. It's a ledger, Goyega said. From the old days. Names, locations, payments. Every dirty job ever done by the unit. Where is it? Nobody knows. Somewhere else, in a room filled with luxury and silence, a new player entered the game. Obiora, known in elite circles as the cleaner, was hired by the corrupt group to erase Tunde before he caused more damage. Obiora wore no uniform. He spoke softly and carried a gold-plated pistol. He made a call to the commissioner of police. Put Tunde Boko on the terror list. I take care of the rest. That night, Lagos felt heavier than usual. The air was damp, the streets half empty. Pastor Tunde, now only Tunde Boko again, moved through the city like a ghost. He carried no phone, no ID, only the old map from his buried box. His first stop was an abandoned warehouse at Apapa Wharf. Once, it was used for secret military briefings. Now it was a shell of dust and rats. Tunde stood in the dark, remembering every corner. This was where the first names in the Black Book had been written. Men like him. Men who obeyed orders and never asked who gave them. He lit a match and whispered, "You took my son. Now I'm taking your peace." In a gated mansion on Victoria Island, General Modi hosted a private meeting. Around the table sat his former colleagues, Colonel Bello, Chief Ajayi, and two others. The atmosphere was tense. This man, Tunde Boko, is not just anyone, Bello said. He trained half of us. Ajayi poured himself a drink. Then why don't we send someone who knows how he thinks? Modi nodded. I already did. Obiora. At that moment, Obiora walked in. Sharp suit. Calm eyes. No emotion. I find him, Obiora said. But remember, once I do, there's no turning back. Meanwhile, far from the city's noise, Awil, the woman taken from the beach, woke up in a dark room. Her wrists were tied, her son asleep beside her. She heard men talking outside the door. Their words were low but cruel. She's the key, one said. If the truth about the old missions comes out, everything crashes. Awil's mind raced. She didn't know why she was important, but she knew she had to escape. She rubbed her wrist against a rusty nail in the wall until the rope began to tear. Her skin bled, but she didn't stop. Then a loud gunshot rang outside. Someone had come for them. Back in the city, Tunde followed another lead, to a quiet compound where an old comrade, Sergeant Malik, lived with his family. Malik opened the door and froze. Tunde. I thought you were dead. Maybe I was, Tunde said. But my son isn't alive, so death doesn't matter anymore. Inside, Tunde asked for names, and Malik gave him one, General Issa, a retired officer who had been their commander. The man who started the Black Book. Where is he now? Tunde asked. Malik hesitated. Abuja. Still guarded like a king. Then Abuja will feel my footsteps soon. That same night, the police commissioner got a call from Obiora. Start circulating his picture, Obiora said. Tell the news he's a wanted terrorist. That should keep the public out of our way. By morning, every channel showed Tunde's face. The story was that he had killed his own son and gone on the run. Even some of his church members believed it. But Tunde didn't care about stories anymore. In a safe house outside Lagos, Tunde found a will and her son. He had followed the sound of gunfire that night and killed the men who held her. When she saw him, she froze. Do you remember me? He asked softly. She shook her head. You were 10 years old when soldiers raided your home. I was there. She stared at him, confused and angry. You killed my parents. I did, Tunde said. And I've carried that weight for 20 years. But those same men took my son last week. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm here to end this. For a long time, Awil said nothing. Then she whispered, I know where the black book is. They traveled together northward, moving through back roads. Along the way, Awil told her story. She had worked as a clerk for an oil firm controlled by Modi and Bello. The firm laundered money through fake government contracts. One day she found a hidden file, the black book, listing names of everyone who had profited from illegal killings. I made a copy, she said. They found out. That's why they came for me. She looked at Tunde. If we can expose it, your son's name will be cleared. Tunde's eyes were hard. I don't care about my name. I care about their end. In Abuja, General Issa sat in his grand office surrounded by medals. Obiora entered quietly and handed him a tablet. He's alive, Obiora said. And he's coming. Issa's hand trembled slightly. Then we prepare for war. Meanwhile, Awil contacted a journalist she trusted, Ngozi, an old friend of Ibuka's. Ngozi agreed to help them publish whatever evidence they found. But she warned, they will kill us all before that fire sees daylight. Tunde only replied, they'll have to catch us first. They planned to retrieve the file from a hidden storage unit near Kaduna, where we had buried the copy years ago. At night, while resting in a small roadside motel, Tunde dreamed of his son again. In the dream, Ibuka stood in the church doorway, smiling. Papa, he said, don't stop. Tunde woke up sweating. He took his pistol, checked the bullets, and whispered to the dark, I won't. At dawn, they reached Kaduna. The air smelled of dust and diesel. Awil led the way to an old fuel storage yard, now abandoned. Beneath one of the metal tanks was a concrete slab. They lifted it and uncovered a waterproof box. Inside was a flash drive wrapped in plastic. This is it, she said. Every name, every deal, every death order. Tunde looked at the small drive like it was a loaded gun. Then we finish this. But as they turned to leave, headlights flooded the yard. Dozens of armed men surrounded them, Obiora at the front. Well done, Pastor, Obiora said. You led me right to it. He gestured, and 2 men grabbed a wheel. Tunde fired, hitting one in the shoulder. The yard erupted in gunfire. Bullets tore through oil drums, spilling black liquid across the ground. Tunde and Awil dug behind cover, firing back. The air filled with smoke and burning fuel. Obiora shouted, you can't fight the whole country. Tunde replied, I only need to fight one man at a time. He shot Obiora's leg, forcing him to fall. Then he dragged the wheel toward a small exit. They escaped as the entire yard went up in flames. Hours later, they reached a safe internet cafe in Jos. Awil plugged in the flash drive and began uploading the contents to Ngozi's secure server. This is the proof, she said, fingers trembling. But before the upload completed, an explosion rocked the building. The screen went black. They barely escaped through the back door as the cafe burned. Tunde watched the flames rise and whispered, they're everywhere. Awil looked at him, terrified. What now? Tunde stared into the night. Now, I go to Abuja. The road to Abuja stretched wide and empty. Tunde drove through the night, his face lit only by the dashboard glow. Beside him, Awil sat silent, clutching the small flash drive that had survived the explosion. They stopped once in Lokoja to rest. Awil asked, "Do you think it's worth it? After this, they'll still come for us." Tunde looked at her. "They already have. What's left to fear?" Before dawn, they reached the capital. The city lights shimmered like stars scattered on the ground. Abuja was the heart of everything: power, wealth, corruption. It was also where the Black Book began. That morning, Tunde met one of his last surviving contacts, Corporal Hossan, now working as a driver for a senator. Hossan trembled when he saw Tunde. "I heard what happened to your boy," he said. "Sorry, sir. But you shouldn't have come back." "I didn't come for advice," Tunde said. "I came for Isa." Hossan swallowed hard. He's holding a meeting tonight at the presidential estate in Asakoro. All of them will be there: Modi, Bello, Ajayi, and even the police commissioner. They are trying to destroy every record connected to the Black Book. Tunde nodded once. "Then tonight, everything ends." That evening, Tunde prepared. He cleaned his gun, checked his knife, and prayed, not for victory, but for forgiveness. Awil insisted on going with him. "You need someone to get the files out," she said. He wanted to say no, but he saw the same fire in her eyes that once burned in Ibukas. "Stay close," he said. "And when it starts, don't look back." In the estate's grand hall, the men sat around a polished table, drinking and laughing as if nothing could touch them. Guards patrolled every corner. Then the lights went out. The room fell silent. A single gunshot echoed. Panic followed, men shouting, guards running. Tunde moved through the darkness like a shadow, taking out guards one by one. He didn't shoot to wound. Every bullet was a full stop. Awil slipped through the chaos, grabbed a briefcase from the table, and plugged in her flash drive. The laptop screen filled with files, the original Black Book database. "Got it," she whispered. But before they could leave, Obiora limped into the hall, bleeding from his leg but alive. He pointed his gun at Awil. "Give it to me." Tunde stepped out of the shadows. "No." Both men fired at once. Obiora's shot grazed Tunde's shoulder. Tunde's bullet hit Obiora square in the chest. The cleaner dropped his gun and fell backward, his gold pistol clattering on the marble. Sirens wailed outside. The estate's remaining guards formed a line, but it was too late. Awil had already sent the files to Ngozi's secure server through a mobile hotspot. Within minutes, the first leaks hit the internet. Names, dates, orders, bank transfers. Every crime recorded in black and white. Across the country, phones buzzed with headlines. Secret military hit list exposed. Top officials implicated in decades of murders. The entire system trembled. Inside the estate, chaos broke loose. Modi tried to flee through the back door, but Tunde caught him. "Why, my son?" Tunde asked, voice low and steady. Modi coughed, blood on his lips. "He was loud, and you were dangerous. We thought killing him would kill you." Tunde stared at him for a long moment, then whispered, "You were wrong." He walked away, leaving Modi on the floor. Outside, police sirens grew louder. But they weren't coming for Tunde. This time, they were coming for Modi and his men. The system, desperate to save itself, had turned inward. Awil and Tunde stood by the gate as vehicles pulled up. "You should go," he told her. "You can still have a life." "What about you?" she asked. "I lost my life the day they took my boy." Awil tried to stop him, but he was already walking away into the night. The next morning, every newspaper carried the same story. The Black Book exposes decades of state murders. Videos and documents filled social media. People marched on the streets demanding arrest. The police commissioner was taken from his home in handcuffs. General Issa tried to flee the country, but soldiers stopped him at the airport. Colonel Bello was found dead in his office, a single gunshot wound under his chin. The empire they built collapsed in a day. Meanwhile, Awil and Gozi faced their own storm. Reporters surrounded them, asking questions. Awil stood before the cameras and said only one thing. My friend's son died for the truth. We have given you the proof. Now do not close your eyes again. Her voice spread across the nation. Many recognized her face from old news footage, the woman kidnapped on the beach. Now she had become the symbol of truth. Far from the noise, in a quiet town in the north, Tunde sat inside a small workshop. His shoulder was bandaged. He no longer wore a pastor's collar. He worked with wood now, carving chairs and tables, keeping to himself. Every evening, he listened to the news on a small radio. He never smiled, but he listened. One evening, Tunde received a small parcel wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a photograph of Ebuka smiling, with a note from Awil. He was right, Pastor. The truth is stronger than fear. Tunde stared at the picture for a long time. Then he went outside, built a small fire, and placed the photo gently on the flames. The paper curled and turned to ash. His eyes glistened in the orange light. I'm sorry, my son, he whispered. I did what I could. When the fire died, he covered the ashes with soil and stood there for a while, his shadow stretching long against the setting sun. The next morning, villagers saw a man walking down the dusty road with a small bag on his shoulder. No one knew his name. He didn't speak much, just smiled politely when greeted. He disappeared into the crowd of a passing market, blending with ordinary people. Some said he went east, others said he joined a mission school. But those who had seen his eyes said they would never forget them, calm, cold, and full of things unsaid. In the city, life moved on. The corrupt were gone, new leaders came, and people whispered about a man who once carried death in his hands but chose to bury it again. No one ever found him. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind blew through the old church in Lagos, the wooden door would creak open by itself. And some said, in the faint glow of candlelight, a man could be seen sitting in the front pew, head bowed, praying for a peace that never came.